Hello everybody and welcome to the British Pint. My name is Christoph and today we're brewing Mann's Brown Ale. There's a recipe on Ron Pattinson's blog that describes the dry barrow version of this brown ale that was brewed in 1966. And it's quite an interesting recipe because it's one of the few remaining recipes of the original. And dry barrow was charged by the owner in the 60s. There were all these mergers in the British breweries, and there was one giant company that owned Mann's and Drybarrow and many other brands, and they charged Drybarrow to brew this beer. Now, it's quite a peculiar thing. So first of all, brown ale, if you didn't watch the last video where I did the modern brown ale with specialty malts, there I described a bit about the story. So Mann's invented this beer style in 1902, and it didn't take off for a long time until between the wars. People really liked these sweet bottled beers. And they made that by pasteurization. So it's a stop fermentation with lots of residual sugars, especially maltose that tastes really sweet compared to other sugars, especially the longer chain ones. And so it's a really sweet brown ale, very malty. You will see in the grain bill it's very malt forward, and then very little bitterness, little attenuation and so on. So I think we can dive right in. I'm preparing, everything's mashing already behind me, trying to get everything done in a short afternoon. So I'm preparing for twice the normal amount that I'm using, so twice 4 liters, 8 liters of beer that I'm gonna have in the end. For this gravity, we're needing 8.5 degree Plato or 1034, original gravity. I need about 1200 grams of malt, and we need 57.9% pale malt. I used Golden Promise for that. And then you can use Maris Otter in this case because it's a very weak beer, so in weak beers Maris Otter really shines. I'm using Golden Promise because I always use that. Then we have tons of crystal malt, so I used leftover stuff that I have to get rid of. I used 50% Cara Crystal, and the other half is actually the Weyermann Cara Munich that I still have. I would recommend you using British crystal malts because the main difference is that the British crystal malts create much more smell of caramel in the beer, while the continental ones are more flavor forward. So how much crystal malt do we need? We need a whopping 24%. That's a lot, but in this low gravity it's still manageable. It doesn't taste too overpowering, I hope. I have no idea, we'll see in the end. For me that's 285 grams. Then I need torrefied barley. I use torrefied wheat for this. You can also buy barley grains and torrefy them. 10 minutes in the oven at 190 degrees Celsius is fine for torrefying grains. And then that's 6.8%, so 82 grams for me. Then the last malt is black malt. I have this tiny leftover which I'm going to use. I need just 16 grams, 1.23%. This is pretty much the amount that you can use before things start to taste noticeably like roasted malt. So this is just for coloring. We're going to get a lot of color from that, but we're going to get more color from the other ingredients. So the next one is actually the same amount as the torrefied wheat. Invert number 3, I'm going to combine number 2 and number 4 to get that. Probably something like a ratio of 1 to 6. I need 6.8% again, 82 grams. And then the last ingredient which I forgot to grab, just a second, is Brewer's Caramel. Now there's this really nice company that I cannot promote enough, which is called Natuurlijk in the Netherlands. And they actually sell burnt sugar. And they actually give the specs. It's 3000 EBC or 5500 SRM. For this recipe we're asked to use 3.4% of caramel with 500 SRM. I'm going to use a third of the amount with 3 times the color. This is really useful because caramel is much more difficult to make at home than invert sugar. If you want to check out the invert sugar recipes I posted 2 years ago, I think, you can find them here in the link that pops up here or in the description below. For this one it's much easier to just buy it. Cannot recommend it enough. You can import it from the Netherlands to pretty much any country. And that's it for the grain or sugar bill. I'm going to add all these in the boil in the last 10 minutes. That's pretty much how you do it. I might add it in the last 30 minutes because our hopping is only for 90 minutes and 30 minutes. So they recommend Fuggle for 90 minutes and Goldings for 30 minutes, 5.5 grams each for my amount of 8 liters. And that's just what I'm going to do. I didn't check yet whether I have both hops at hand because I recently used up a lot of Fuggles in some other brews, and I will check if anything changes. You will see that here in the list, as I always do that. Just push everything on the list. Or maybe the list is here this time. It keeps changing depending on where I stand. So that's it. We need an attenuation in the end of 65%, and that's really low. So what I'm going to use is Maltotriose weak yeast, which is the M15. This is similar to S33 or Windsor or whatever they used for repackaging. Mangrove Jacks does not create their own yeast, they just repackage. So this is similar to one of them. It might be S33, and that would be my guess. So I'm going to use that one. Just, what is it, not half a gram per liter as I usually use because the gravity is so low. And it doesn't have to eat Maltotriose, so it's even lower, I don't know. Some 0.25 grams per liter, maybe. And then I'm mashing really high to get a lot of residual sugars, because you need to keep in mind that these sugars are 100% fermentable. And that means that I need to combat that with more dextrins. I'm mashing at 72 degrees here. Yeah, pretty much exactly, 72.4 at the moment. So I'm going to try to keep this temperature high for a long time. The mash is going to finish much faster than usually, because the higher temperature boosts the alpha amylase, and alpha amylase is so much faster than beta amylase. So I'm probably going to be done in 20 minutes, maybe 30, and so I don't need to keep this high temperature for a long time. It's a bit difficult in this less isolated mash kettle. Alright, so that's the strategy. Let me tell you a bit about the water. I added a bit of lactic acid and calcium chloride liquid to my water in a way that I get a chloride of 200 ppm, and hydrogen carbonate is half to 90. That is just to get the flavor that I want for this beer. pH is then at the lower end, some 5.3 or something like that. Mash pH is not as important as flavor profile, in my opinion, if you want to do water adjustment. Flavor, you only need the pH to be okay for conversion. And then we have everything, I think. Yeah, very nice. Oh, one thing I need to take into account is my sugars that I made are near 100% sugar. But if you want to use percentages, as Ron Pattison does here, you want to have the same amount of extract in your sugar as in your malts. So I need something like 70%. So I'm going to use the grams that are given there and divide them by, multiply them by 0.7, and then I'm going to get the actual grams. Alright, so that's everything. Going to look forward to using this one. I've used it before in a beer that I did off camera. So I made a party guy recently trying my own recipes. I wasn't that happy with it, so I might do another video if I change the recipe. But what I did there is I brewed many pale ales, and one of them, the last one, was dark malt, which I darkened with the sugar. And that turned out quite nice. So the flavor of this one is quite decent. It's very caramelly, but not too much. And because this is 100% unfermentable sugar, 70-degree Plato extract, this really just boosts your mouthfeel a lot. So that's very, very useful for this one. So this will add non-fermentable sugar, the mash will add non-fermentable sugar, these ones will add highly fermentable sugar, and in the end I hope everything balances to 65% attenuation. We'll see, I have no idea. The last time I tried to get very high attenuation with the Young's Winter Warmer didn't really work out as well, so it's a bit difficult to get that. Alright, and then we'll see each other in the tasting, and in between I'll show you the clips of how I brew. See you then, bye bye. Alright, so we're back with the tasting, and I'm really looking forward to this one, because contrary to the last brown ale I made, I'm pretty sure the bottles are clean this time. Last time, so I did tell the story incorrectly last time. Last time I washed them individually with hot tap water and dishwasher detergent, and my tap water only gets 50 to 55 degrees hot. This one was in the dishwasher with dishwasher detergent, and that is 70 degrees, so I'm very confident that this one actually killed off all the old yeast. This one is supposed to be very clean, and we'll see whether the carbonation is right now. I did already try the version for the hand pump that I made with the bag-in-box, and I was really not happy with that one because the yeast didn't precipitate properly. And with the bottles I noticed that it's a bit clearer, so I'm going to taste this one now in front of the camera, and I have high hopes for it. But clarity-wise, in the last beer I used a 60-degree rest, and in this one I didn't. I would say it is missing. With the same yeast we have a lot less precipitation with just single infusion rest at 66 or 67 degrees, and I might actually have mashed this one higher, didn't I, to get the sweetness. And with the previous one, with 60-degree rest for 50 minutes to get rid of the very long chain proteins that create this little bit of haze, I was much more happy. Okay, so let's see how this one turned out. First the carbonation. Yeah, that's perfect. No gushing whatsoever. Okay, let's see what this is like. Yeah, it is cloudy. It is hazy. Not that hazy. I can still see through the bottom parts because it's almost translucent. But similar to some wheat beers I've made, the yeast just doesn't seem to really want to precipitate. So this might have a yeasty bite to it. And there's another off flavor which I might recognize from the hand pump version, but I want to see first whether this is in here as well. Huh. So it smells malty and caramelly, and the one in the hand pump, because of the really intense cloudiness, was just smelling like yeast, and I believed what I believed also to be fusels. This one doesn't have that, so maybe I was wrong with thinking it was fusels. I was really scared that this one would be a fusely beer. So I used the M15 by Mangrove Jacks, which I think is just the S33 repackaged, 3 times now, and this one is a beer that has lots of sugar in it. And I fermented them all the same at really warm temperature, 22 degrees. But this one seemed to be a bit fusely, so I was scared that maybe because of the simple sugars that are in here from the Invert sugar, this one might have just overshot with the temperature. So we'll see what this smells like now. Yeah, I get a bit of bready impression, but also caramel, like burnt caramel. That is, it's bruised caramel in here, so that makes sense. But also a bit of chocolate. Much cleaner chocolate than I would expect, actually. It's really just lots of crystal malt in here and not any pale chocolate or brown malt or any of the specialty malts that we had in last time's brown ale. So let's see what this tastes like. It's very good. Yeah. Very, very little yeast bite. Just a bit of prolonged bitterness and a slight acidity on the tongue. That is not vinegar or anything, it's really just the yeast flavor. And when I brewed with the S33 previously, it was just like this, so I think this is the clarity that I just have to stick with this beer and this yeast. So the flavor, of course, because this beer has very low ABV, you will see the data here on the side. I don't remember everything by now. The original has 2.9% ABV, I did have more. But yeah, it's really quite watery. I probably would have to maybe get a lot of foam in there that it gives a bit of creamy mouthfeel while drinking, but I think it's just all you can expect. So what I want to say is that the flavor really vanishes quickly. Full of crystal malt, so that's noticeable. So you have a lot of crystal malt in percentage, but the ABV is really low, so it evens out into something that is quite strong in crystal malt. And then the rest, there's a bit of caramel. I thought it would be more, so I adjusted the color with this Brewer's Caramel. It's one that has 3000 EBC, and I find it really just lovely in color. And it is just slightly noticeable, really not that much. So that's interesting. I thought I would already be overdoing it. It does have a malty backbone. I think this was Maris Otter. Really noticeable. Tasty, nice. Yeah, this is really drinkable. Quaffable, as they say. And I would not be in any stress to have a few pints of this because it's so low in ABV. That's really nice. I have done very low ABV beers before, like the Behaven's Best, which you might want to have a look at in the previous video. And that was very similar in this watery character, but it was gone once you drew it through sparkler, which creates that thick foam. I wouldn't want to do that with this one because this is a southern British beer style, probably not served from a sparkler, actually usually just served from a bottle. It's bottled beer that you would drink at home. And that would be just very sweet and malty for the low ABV. Alright, very happy with this one. So if you want to have a go at the historic recipe, do go ahead. Do I smell any hoppiness? No, not really in there. So this is very mild in its hoppiness as well. Alright, and then I'll see you next time. So, bye bye.